Old technology. It's pretty cool, but sometimes not super practical. But in some cases, old technology can still be pretty cool and useful. It just depends on the device. And so sometimes you gotta ask yourself, is this old device still potentially useful? And that's why I'm making this video about the Kodak EasyShare Z7590 or something. It seems pretty cool. I've shot a few photos with it, but in this video we're gonna see, can it still take decent photos next to an iPhone 12? And could it be worth buying if you are on the market for one, because they're actually pretty cheap, only about $15 to $20, which might not be a very good sign, but we shall see in due time. But anyway, this is the camera itself, and here it is against its competitor. So we shall see which one of these can take the better photo more of the time, because I have a feeling that, well, this only has a resolution of 5 megapixels, and let me be clear when I say that I know not that much about cameras other than just kind of how to adjust them to take the best shot in a given under given circumstances. I do think that this does have some potential because it's got 10 times optical zoom, and that means that this can actually like move the sensor or whatever like itself, not just crop the image like a phone might. In the case of the iPhone 12, it would, because it does not have a dedicated telephoto lens. So anyway, pretty cool. It can go from wide to telephoto, so for zoom shots it might be better. We're gonna go ahead and take it around the house and outside and just kind of put it to the test. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the camera's features, because I actually have the original box here, and at least kind of paint the picture, because this is from around 2005 or so. So let's go ahead and take a look. Alright, so here's a better look at the box itself. It's called the EasyShare because there's this little share button right here on the camera. And basically this would make it easier next time you connect it to a computer to share the image to like a printer or something. On the back you can kind of get a better look at the specifications. 5 megapixels, which, you know, megapixel count isn't everything. I think it's more going to be just like, are the colors accurate? Does it make a pleasant picture more than is it the highest resolution? Because already megapixel count on my phone is like, you know, 7 megapixels more than that. Anyway, it's got high-res liquid crystal display. We'll see about that. It does have a built-in histogram feature, which is pretty cool. Basically, it kind of lets you measure like the brightness and make sure that it's not going to be too dark or too bright. Let's see. It's got a lithium-ion battery, which surprisingly still holds the charge just fine. 32 megs of internal storage, but you can expand it up to an extra 2 gigs of storage via an SD card. And that's why I did have this 1 gigabyte card, which is pretty vintage. You can get a little printer accessory. There's a color science chip from Kodak. Ooh, that's cool. But the camera itself doesn't look too ancient, I'd say. It's got a little joystick here for some navigation, and then other navigation relies on this jog dial here. And of course there's the pop-up flash. And down here you'll find a tripod mount, a little port for I think the printer accessory, battery pack, pretty cool. And these flaps cover up some of the ports on the side. This has like potentially a little flash icon. I'm not quite sure what that's for. I'm no camera expert. And finally, here's the lens with its little cover. So yeah, you got your LCD here, and also a little mini viewfinder thing. That should kind of give you enough background here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take some photos on this thing. Alright, so forgive the loud dog, but yeah, this is where we'll go ahead and try to take our first photo. So I have the Kodak camera set up on this neat little tripod, and in the interest of fairness, but also kind of unfairness, depends on how you look at it, I'm not going to be using a tripod to take photos on the iPhone. Kind of figure it's got, you know, optical image stabilization anyway, so it gives it somewhat of an advantage. I don't think this does. But anyway, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and try to get a photo. As you can see though, this is just kind of a
challenging lighting situation, and then hopefully once a month, I'm gonna kind of periodically kind of give updates through this process, and then we can go ahead and take a look at the finished results. So yeah, that'll be cool. Okay, our next subject will be this kind of sad looking bird feeder thing, because I guess we're just gonna take photos of things related to birds now, so that'll be cool. Forgive the loud dog again, but if you look all the way up there, that's the top of this massive tree in my backyard. So that begs the question, can we get a good zoom shot from all the way up there? And which will win? The Kodak or the iPhone? So yeah, this is where this optical zoom might just come in handy. You can kind of hear it whirring there maybe. And we're going to try to zoom as far as we can with this before we start cropping the image, because we want to get the very top of the tree. So I don't know if I'm catching this, it's kind of difficult, but alright, that should be max zoom. So we'll see how this turns out. Alright, so here's our final kind of outdoors shot we're going to try to get. Yeah, it's definitely got some challenging bits, and you know, I mean, there's definitely room for failure, but we'll go ahead and see how the two competitors fare. Now for some indoor shots.
Okay, so here's the result of the first shot. So as you can see, I'd say it captured the scene pretty well. Definitely kind of blew out the highlights here a bit, but you can still see what it is. So overall, pretty nice. It kind of has a vintage look, especially if you look at the sky here. If I zoom in a bit, you can see it still holds up in terms of sharpness alright, though there is a bit of fuzziness and grain to it. But overall, fairly satisfying shot, but unfortunately for the Kodak, if we go back here, this is the photo I got on the iPhone, and yeah, it does better, you know, making the color, you know, it does better with the colors, and in terms of sharpness too, I'd say. If I zoom in a bit, you can see pretty sharp there. I think most people would just say, like, purely objectively, this is probably the inferior photo, and this one probably at least is a bit better, just because it doesn't kind of blow out the highlights as much, which makes it more true to life. Moving on though, we have this one here of the bird feeder. It's got, that shadow was there in real life, don't worry. It's got a nice shadow there. As for sharpness, it's actually pretty sharp once you zoom in a bit. You can see definitely sharper than the last one, if I had to say. And honestly, it's even kind of captured the sort of sunburst looking effect on it. I'm pretty happy with this one. I think that it's pretty good. And then if we compare it to the iPhone, honestly, it's kind of hard to say, because, I mean, if you zoom in a bit, I'd say definitely around as sharp, if not a bit sharper. I think it might get the details a bit better too. And same with, this one's definitely a bit darker. But as far as the looks go, I mean, I guess you could argue either way. If you kind of like the darker look and the more dramatic shadows, I mean, you know, again, photography is pretty subjective. But I'd say that it kind of is a bit more up for debate. But I think that when you compare these two photos, they came out surprisingly similar, to be honest. I mean, I think the iPhone has a slightly warmer hue to it, but it doesn't look like, you know, so incredibly different. And like, it's definitely easier to argue for the Kodak on this one at least than the last one in terms of quality. Now, here's one where I'm pretty sure most people will say the Kodak won. So this is the top of the tree, and it's a zoom shot. I zoomed in as far as the zoom could go, 10 times zoom. And what I got was probably one of the coolest photos I've ever taken, actually, because if you look, not only is it very sharp, I mean, this is like way up, probably maybe about 100 feet up. I don't know, maybe that's an exaggeration. I'm not good at measuring that sort of thing, but you can see it's a far away shot, right? And it still has this awesome like blur effect in the background but then it also doesn't blur some of the branches. Like, it's not all blurred, but it makes for a really cool and artsy sort of look. And this is way up, keep in mind. I mean, it really is impressive, and I'm not sure you can really get this sort of photo on a smartphone because just the way the optics work. And yeah, I mean it's really cool, and these few branches here are in focus and the rest are blurred. Very cool. I like it a lot. As for the iPhone, though, we get this mess, and I think basically anyone will agree with me that this is the cooler shot. Maybe the colors are a bit more true to life, but let's face it, this looks way better and way cooler and actually really cool. So definitely neat, and for a 2005 camera, that's really quite impressive, if I have to say so myself. Though again, I'm no expert. Anyway, here's the next one. I think this turned out pretty well. Definitely kind of like white balance. It's definitely kind of a bit bright in some spots, but that's okay. I think it actually kind of contributes to the shot. It doesn't look like overblown or anything. And overall, I really like the look of this one. I think Kodak did a good job. Now, I haven't actually really taken a good look at the one the iPhone got. Yeah, I mean, this is another one where it's kind of subjective, depending on if you kind of like the more vintage look. I mean, I'd say that both look pretty similar, though. Definitely a bit more, it's a bit darker. Like, I feel like that's kind of the general trend. Like, the Kodak can take nice looking photos, to be honest, but they are a tad bit darker, and that could be kind of my own shooting because I was shooting in manual the whole time. But I did actually take several shots with different like configurations, and then pick the best one out of like 3 or 4 for the Kodak. And I just point and shot on the iPhone, so take that as you will. I'd say if we zoom in a bit, still fairly sharp. Like this house here, I mean, it's not like super fuzzy. If we zoom in, yeah, I mean sharpness. The iPhone might be a bit sharper, but that's honestly kind of to be expected. Yeah, overall, both pretty good. I mean, kind of depends on what sort of style you like, but I think this is kind of showing where I'm going with this video, to be honest, so that's good. Anyway, moving on, this was my first indoor shot out of 3, and it turned out alright. My only gripe with it, really, I mean, I think that these colors are pretty much spot on with that real life. The only problem is that it kind of blew out thanks to the sunlight shining out. It kind of shining in. This curtain kind of lost its pattern because if we look at the shot on the iPhone, you can actually see the pattern is all throughout. And yeah, because of that, I'd say that the iPhone won, no question. Just because, I mean, sure, the Kodak did do a good job, but that's kind of a pretty glaring issue, if you get the joke. That's not very funny, but you know, you get the idea. The glaring issue there versus this looking pretty good. Yeah, I think that the iPhone won in that case. Though, again, whichever one won is up to you. I'm just kind of sharing my thoughts as they come into my head. Anyway, here is the sort of office shot. This is where I work on my projects, and overall, I'd say it turned out pretty well. I think that really kind of the issue with this one is that it kind of it blows out the highlights with the light, and then the laptop reflecting it's kind of really lighter than it is really in real life. So that is something you can see. I think the iPhone did a better job of kind of taking a more accurate photo of the light and not blowing it out, and say with the laptop there. I mean, they're not that different, honestly. I mean, again, it's mainly just a bright source of light that throws it off. And that's what this goes to show. I mean, it's pretty impressive because this is a 2020 phone, fairly high-end, though not like a super high-end phone, versus 2005 camera that was, you know, nice for the time. And yeah, I mean, pretty impressive. And then finally, I took a photo of my watch here. If we zoom in a bit, you can see it does a pretty good job of capturing the sort of look of the dial and the different things printed on it. It doesn't look super fuzzy, which is nice. And it also does a good job of capturing the texture of the surface I put it on, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I really like this photo. I mean, there's not too much I have to say really just against it because it really captures the details pretty well. And And here's the iPhone shot. I definitely say it's a bit sharper, because if you go back here and zoom in, you can see it's kind of a bit fuzzier, whereas this is kind of a bit sharper. But part of me does kind of prefer this image just because the colors are it's a bit more saturated, a bit more vibrant, I'd say. This is kind of a bit more dull, though perhaps a bit more true to life. So really, again, this one could kind of go either way. It depends on how much detail you want from the photo of the dial itself. And I mean, from this angle, if you don't look up super close, it looks pretty sharp. So overall, I'd say this camera's managed to take some pretty impressive photos for what it is. And I mean, I still look back at photos like these and I'm like, okay, this could be a reason to go out and buy one of these, just because, I mean, you can't just get this from any old phone camera. Or really, maybe even any phone camera in general, because it's thanks to, you know, the optics used in more traditional cameras that something like this can be possible with kind of that, you know, natural blur effect. And I think that, honestly, I mean, photos like this, pretty nice. I mean, I'd be satisfied with these, and if I didn't have the iPhone, I mean, I probably wouldn't have too many complaints, which is impressive. Okay, so I think that's about it. Pretty cool little camera, that Kodak. I definitely think it goes to show that it's not necessarily, when it comes to photography, it's not necessarily about the hardware you use, but rather kind of like how you actually use it, and if you really push it to its full potential, sometimes you don't even need the latest and greatest, although it is always fun to have the latest and greatest, though I've never been able to myself, so I guess I can't say that with certainty, but at this point I'm just rambling. So thanks, water bottle, for making that noise, but yeah, overall I'm pretty impressed, as I said before. Pretty cool. But here's the question for you. Do you know of any old digital cameras that managed to put modern phones to shame? Let me know in the comments below. And also, do you think that the Kodak managed to edge out the iPhone in any shots? I certainly feel like, personally, it did by a long shot with the tree shot, but some of the other ones, one could maybe argue in the Kodak's favor too, or vice versa. So yeah, let me know what you think, and ciao.